Hello, everyone. Well, I like to talk about esoteric stuff and the things that makes you think and question your life in general. Well, I think the kind of life we live in, there is indeed an alternative life to the kind of life most of people live. Like the kind of life that you go in the morning, you wake up, you go to work, you eat, you go back home, you watch TV. On weekends, you probably go watch a movie, you go bowling, take a trip to, somewhere out of town for like hiking, go fishing, and, getting married and having kids and get old, and then you retire, then you die. So I think there's really alternative to this kind of life. So I decided to start posting my own video because I want to be involved in this kind of community. I want to be involved with, people who think differently, people who believe that there is more to this life than just being ordinary. So without taking too much of your time, the topic today I am going to talk about is the ancient technology. The reason I want to talk about ancient technology is, over the past few days, let's say past few months, I have discovered that most of the information on spirituality, conspiracy theories, and, the kind of information you find on the internet and YouTube, they're mostly there. Somebody copied someone else material, and they're very, somehow they're very misleading. They're based on people's opinions. For example, like the TV show Ancient Alien, it can be very misleading, making people believe that everything that man has ever created is based on mechanical inclined kind of technology. But today I want to present to you an alternative theory to technology. So I want to take a different approach. I want to be different. I want to talk about something that is very different from the point of view of technology. And I will explain it as clear as I can. So I started to see things in a different way, something in a more complete way. And that's why I decided to share my opinion to see what other people think about this. And I think like the biggest thing that blocks us from seeing higher truth is because we only hold ideology on one direction. Instead of asking the who, we mostly ask what, how, which, and when. We don't try to see something in a holistic point of view. So I know some people, they say, well, I believe I'm a spiritual person. I believe in afterlife. I believe in, Gaia. I believe in, God and the universe and something like that. I'll say, that's fair enough, but maybe you want to ask yourself this question. Does believing something makes it right? It doesn't. If you believe, your mind can move things, Are you able to move things with your mind? I say you can't. If you believe in angels, you can ask them to do something for you. And do they always do that thing for you? Is that a coincidence or what is it? So, like when you look at the religious people, for example, they're very religious in a way that they believe in God, but they would put God only on the so-called spiritual side. That means God is only for some specific things, but he's not for something else. And, this is kind of like, I think it's not really a complete way. I mean, if you need material things, why would you segregate the material needs to the spiritual needs? Aren't you the same person? So I want to present this idea to you and just approach things from a different point of view in more of a holistic uh, way. Back in, like, I think about I'll say maybe about a year ago, I was listening to this podcast. There was this traditional African shaman. He was talking about how they've been worshiping their ancestors for many years. And he was saying him as a shaman, he would use the spirit of a person to do some things for them. For example, like, because a spirit can do a lot of things that a human cannot do. For example, they can be in many places at once, so they can move from one point to another in a very fast speed. They can look someone on the other end of the planet to tell you what that person is doing. So he was just saying that how they communicate with these spirits and tell them and use them to do some things for them, you know? And this kind of just triggered something on my mind and made me think about the ancient technology, the way we think we understand it, it's not really correct. So what I mean is, I think even the technology we use today, it's not it's not as dead or as inorganic as we think it is. For example, I think there was a day I was watching one show. I don't really remember where, but in Japan, if I am correct, they believe that even a simple thing like a phone has a spirit living in it. They believe that it is a spirit. So the thing we see as technology, the thing that we use on our daily life, they're, they have another side to them. Like, even though it's a technology, the whole process of manufacturing something is in itself a living thing. So what I mean is, think about electricity, think about magnetism, think about the temperature, the air. These elements, they are, we don't really comprehend 100% what they, it's not as clear as you would see something in front of you. You are able to touch it, you're able to hold it, you're able to do whatever you want to do with it. So I think in the world of magnetism, it is the same reality as this physical reality, that there are also other living forms in that world. And once we connect to that world, we are able to create electronic devices that can do things. And the other day I was also listening, I think I was reading somewhere that the existence of genes, the genie, like the Aladdin and the lamp. So these genies, they're similar to human beings. The only difference is they're made up of a different kind of material, and they are able to perform things that an ordinary human being cannot do. And this is not really something, it's not something very new. It's something that has been there. It's just that in this modern day and age, we ignored and we don't really talk about those things as much as people in the past used to talk about. My what this point leads me to is that every device, every electronic device that we are using, we are in fact using other entities to perform tasks for us. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is exactly the phrase that says a ghost in the machine or a genie in the bottle. So this, I think, was an article, was a podcast. I can't really remember, but this person was saying that the the genes they usually attach themselves into crystals or precious metals like gold, silver, and things like that. There's also a knowledge. There's also an art of doing that kind of a ritual. So in a way, this led me to the conclusion that most of the ancient technology is not really a technology the way we think it is. It's something more on the supernatural side rather than a mechanistic world of creating things. So you might be asking yourself, how about, I mean, what is the technology versus spirituality? I've also pondered this question for a very long time, and it kind of just hinders me to be able to move forward in my own spiritual path. Because sometimes you think, oh, if I like electronics, if I like, all this new tech coming every, you know, now and then, I'll probably reduce my spiritual growth. But now I can tell you for sure that the the purpose of technology is to improve the quality of life. And the purpose of spirituality is to for an individual to grow spiritually. But they're really one and the same thing. The purpose is the same. The purpose is to raise the quality of life. When someone is spiritual, they would improve their internal qualities. They would do an internal alchemy to improve their ways of living, which is technology. So there's a big gap between a person and his needs. But once we merge this as one thing, you're able to see that technology and spirituality, they're just one tool that can help us live a better life. And this is going to make us being able to break through instead of segregating or compartmentalize things. We're able to merge these two together so that human can move forward. So, anyways, the way I see life in general, I think life is something that's eternal. We have technology because we are trying to retain and maintain our states of being. We are trying to return to our original nature because, in my own opinion, we've fallen from our own glory. We're falling from the higher state of existence into this state. One day I was talking to my friend and she asked me, where do you think we all came from? And I told her, well, I honestly think we came from the dream world because it is always there. When you go to sleep, you go into that place. And in the dream world, you are able to do many things that your ability to do things is like unlimited. You can fly, you can turn into a dog, you can do anything over there. You can even exist without a body. But we just have the mentality that this is just my imagination. But that is a real world that we came from. And I think that's where we came from when we fall into this denser reality, the reality that is very slow, is very condensed, where we are very, whenever we want to do something, it has to be very strenuous. It has to be something very laborious, something that it takes a lot of efforts and willpower to get it done. So I think that there is indeed a fall of man. When you read on sacred scripts, they all talk about the fall of man, the loss of humanity's glory. Jesus, for example, was sent to deliver man from sin. The Buddhist talks about raising man from the state of suffering. I mean, all these things happens that these very wise people, they're mostly concerned about the well-being of a person in general and not just their current state of existence. So my my take is very simple. Consider like a scenario where there's a world of only vehicles, and these vehicles exist in a place where they can have maintenance and replacements of their parts. So these parts are manufactured in industries. Industry needs workers, raw material, and power. And this continues for many, many, many years. Nobody knows even how long it has been going on. It's something that it's timeless. And then suddenly there happens to be a collapse because of lack of materials and low supply of power. So if you simulate this in your mind, the first thing that you can imagine is there's going to be a chaos. There's going to be the world of dogs eating dogs. Like the cars, the bigger trucks will take advantage on the smaller ones. It will be survival for the fit. Some bigger trucks will be, stealing parts, spare parts from the smaller ones so that they can repair themselves. They will be stealing gas, and they'll be creating, minions and group together so that they can survive in a group. And I think in this world, you really don't want to be as something like a Toyota Prius or those small smart cars, because you'll be eaten like very fast. They'll just break you down for the spare parts. So I think this is exactly what happened to us. I think this is the collapse of the higher, greater civilization, what I call the eternal society. And when you think about it, I think people talk about evolution. I mean, if it's true or not true, that's not really my concern. My concern is that there is indeed something that does whatever it can do with its power to make sure we stay in this slumber. We stay uneducated. We stay not knowing our true nature. And for many years, that's what I've been trying to find out. I've been trying to find out the truth about our original nature, where we came from, and what we can do, what I can do to return to my original nature. That led me to believe that the ancient people were more in tune with nature than the current people. And the ancient technology wasn't really a technology at all. It was something that was an inborn ability of a person. So what I mean is the ability of a person to perform a certain task without the need of any machinery, without the need of sometimes even using their hands. And that's why when you dig deep into the ancient books, you find out there's things like yoga, there's tai chi, the use of crystals. You can see even now a lot of people are wearing they're wearing of all these jewelries and the use of pyramids and things like that. So it's not the way we imagine it is. Like if someone wants to, let's say, just by using his own thoughts, he wants to transform a block of concrete into a you know yeah, someone wants to transform a block of concrete into a beautiful creation, like arts creation, something like a statue or something. It's not like uh, a beam of light is gonna shoot out of his mind and it's gonna start cutting, or that beam is gonna magically going to turn or transform that block of stone into a statue. It's not like that. What I think is exactly the same way you would perform a task in this physical world. Like if you want to build a house, you would go to a contractor and then give them an order of how you want your house to be done. They will accept your order and like they would execute that order into different tasks and give these tasks to different trades until the task is done. So there's also a principle behind these things that make the ancient technology be a technology. The reason I'm saying that it's not just, there has to be a mechanism behind every event or every task is because of the records about King Solomon. King Solomon was one of the interesting character because what they say is that he had the ability to hear the beings from another dimension. He was able to talk to them and communicate with them. He could understand the language of birds. He could understand the language of insects and even animals. So this came to his advantage because he was able to command the jinns to build the temple for him. And I think when you're reading the Bible, they say that when the temple was being built, there wasn't any noises of chopping the stones, or, in every construction, there's a lot of noise there. But for this case, there wasn't any kind of noise. And this is one of the interesting case because there's a record that he met with Queen of Sheba from Ethiopia. And I find it interesting that in Ethiopia, there are 7 stone churches They are just cut out of a huge rock. They are not built with bricks. It's just a cutout from the rocks. That's how a church is built. And I can say for sure that it's not made by a hand of man. So this of a technology that I'm talking about, I think this technology is still, this knowledge is still there. We're somehow actually misled to see the reality and the simplicity of things. And that's why I want to bring this topic, and so that we can figure it out. So we can take another account from all these ancient religious figures such as Jesus, Moses, Elijah, Buddha, and so on. And you read about these people, they had supernatural powers. They were able to perform things that not every ordinary man can do it. And what they teach is, what they are trying to teach is more of getting back into our original nature. For example, like Jesus, one of my famous quote is, he said, if you really want to enter into the kingdom of God, it's not something that you just go around look for. It is something that grows within you. So my understanding is that once you start to follow something that's inside you, to hear the voices that are within you, they will lead you to back to the dream world. They will lead you back to where you came from, the place that we fell from, the place that we don't remember. And this is kind of like the message also I want to bring to people, because I think like the technology or the supernatural powers, it's not something that you can actually go look for. It is the way you align yourself, when you correct yourself, when you be in harmony with the natural world. That's when these supernatural power, they will start manifesting. And I think that's where the concept of sin came from, that when you do the things that go against the universal principles, you start to fall, you start to lose your natural abilities. And so this brings me into the conclusion. So the conclusion is that we cannot just blindly say that all the ancient technology was brought to us by alien, or all the technology is the product of mechanistic of machines. And quite to be frankly, maybe even the aliens, they're just making sure we don't really remember our original nature. And I think it's safe to say that there's an alternative to this life. There's a way of living that is not the consumer type of life. I personally grew up in a culture where most of the impossible things, can be possible. But, quite frankly, nobody is sharing their secret. They hide these things. You're not going to see any of the things in a broad daylight. But, people talk about it, you hear them in the news, but it's very hard to prove them scientifically. And there's another story that people are able to use, that still up to today, people they are able to use the genes to do a lot of things that a normal human being cannot do. For example, let's say if I have a spear, I would attach that spear to a genie, and then that spear would be a magical instrument, and would be something like, I can use that spear to do things that even the modern technology cannot do. Or so something like, okay, let's say if I am in China and someone is in Mexico, I can just throw that spear. warp time and space, and then it would appear exactly where that person is, shoot him and kill him, and then he will come back. So nobody would know how that person died. Or I can just use that spear to transport myself anywhere I want in the world with just a blink of an eye. So it's things like that do exist. It's just that they're always parallel to this world. And if you are really attached to this world as much, you're not going to find anything. Everything is just going to be like a smoking mirrors. You won't really see anything. You won't find evidence for anything. You will just be chasing your own tail. So in conclusion, who is this? Where does this information lead us to? So this is to say that even the current technology, it cannot exist without otherworldly creatures. We have a world of electricity, for example, which is full of different life forms. And where we create electronics, we're only supplementing what is already there. Even though just think about how a rock would look like in another state of existence. It is a living organism. But here we perceive it as a rock. If you have a skill set of an engineer in the world of botanist, your skills are as good as a rock. The danger now is that we are more than what we are led to believe. Religion, education, and authority in general somehow keeps us under their arms so we can remain in a deep slumber. It is time to wake up, talk about these things, and realize our original nature. Okay, so far, where does this information lead us to? So this information is that the current technology cannot exist without otherworldly creatures, specific the elementals, fairies, the jinns, and so on. And the thing is, I remember there was one session on remote viewing. Courtney Brown was talking about the elementals and how our technology is impacting their life. It's invading their space and destroying the environment. So even though we use computers, our cell phones, there's like all these antennas and Wi-Fi, it disrupts the other world life form. And somehow, whatever we do here, it affects life on the other side. So the ancients were very careful and they knew how to live in harmony with those life forms. They could communicate with them, they could use them to help them in many ways. So I think it's time to kind of take a step back and look at ourselves, look at our lives, and try to see how we can really be in harmony with those otherworldly creatures. The really big problem I see right now is that most of the information on the internet tends to lead you away from the truth. It tends to misguide you and dethrone you from your own crown. If you think about religion, education, media, and all of authority, they just tend to just make you stay in a slumber, stay there so they can use you, so they can they can consume all the life force out of you and leave you an empty shell. Well, until next time, take care.